What's up, folks? This is Billy from BillyGoesHiking.com. This is my gear update video. I'm 2 months into my through hike attempt on the Appalachian Trail, and I've changed some stuff about my gear. So I've got an old video that's a gear list walkthrough that I put together before I started. So I'm not going to go through every single piece of gear again because that one turned out to be about an hour and a half long. You can watch that if you want. It's on my channel. Today, I'm just going to kind of start from there and talk about what's different between that video and now and kind of why and how I'm thinking about gear as we sit here today. So first of all, if you're just following along on YouTube, you probably either think that I'm off the trail or that I'm really bad about posting videos to YouTube. The second is the case. I've also got a blog that's billygoeshiking.com, and lately I've just been more in tune with taking photos and writing them for that. So I haven't been using the YouTube platform quite as much. But for this content in particular, I thought a video made good sense. So if you want to see more about my trip and you've only kind of looked at the YouTube videos, you can check that out. Again, that's billygoeshiking.com. So the first thing I'm going to talk about, and I apologize in advance if I'm sounding kind of stopped up. Today I'm in Roanoke, Virginia, taking a 0 day. I got my second dose of my COVID shot last night, and so I'm feeling a little bit under the weather today. Better this afternoon. Definitely good enough to shoot a video, but if I sound a little stopped up, that's why. But anyway, the first thing I'm going to talk about is changes that I made prior to starting the hike, but after that video. So there's two things that I added to my setup that weren't included in that video and were not included in the 10-pound, 12-ounce base weight that's in my lighter pack. I don't have a scale. I'm not in a place where I can update lighter pack in real time. So that'll have to wait for the end of the hike. I'm not going to guesstimate what my base weight is now, but if there's some YouTube internet sleuths out there that want to try and piece things together, be my guest. So two things were added. The first one, I got a pair of sealskins Gore-Tex socks that I cut the toes and sewed just so that they'd be compatible with the Bedrock sandals. Um, those were awesome. I used them twice, once in the Smokies, once going over Roan, which you might think, oh, you use something twice in 60 days. It doesn't sound very useful. I think I would have been super, super uncomfortable if I had not had them on those two specific occasions. So I'm really glad that I did have them. And I kind of got lucky in terms of overall temperature anyway. I think it could have been a lot colder. And if it had been, maybe I would have worn them more. So I have since sent those home, so I can't show them to you, but I did add those after I filmed my initial gear list. And the rationale there was just, I'm not as experienced of a winter backpacker. Not that any of this has been really true winter conditions, but, um, wearing sandals in 15-degree weather when there's snow on the ground, you got to have something besides just sandals. So that's where the Gore-Tex socks came in. They did their job. They were great, but I do not have them anymore. The second thing is the stick clip and cell phone attachment for the stick clip. Um, that's what I'm using to film this video, so hopefully it doesn't turn out too shaky. That's what I've been using to film videos on the trail. It weighs about an ounce for both things together. However, I did have to change out the bolt that holds the stick clip onto the trekking pole because I dropped the nylon bolt that it comes with in the Smokies. And the replacement bolt is metal, so it is a little bit heavier, but who knows? Doesn't matter. Not a big weight penalty in any case. So I add those two things. Since I've been hiking, I added two other things. So the first one, when I was at the Nantahala Outdoor Center, I was growing more and more wary about the Smokies and my sleep system. I think, some YouTube commenters had commented they thought it wasn't quite warm enough for the conditions that I might be facing. Um, and people that I hiked with had a kind of similar feedback. And then there was nights, starting out where it was 20 degrees and I was sleeping on my Uber Light and I was thinking to myself, this is really uncomfortable. Don't get me wrong, like it was fine. I made it. There wasn't like a safety concern there, but it certainly wasn't ideal. So at the Nantahala Outdoor Center, I made a decision to purchase a foam sleeping pad made by Nemo, so the Nemo Switchback, um, and cut probably 4 or 5 of the sections off of that so it could fit on the side of my backpack. And I carried that from the Nantahala Outdoor Center to Damascus, Virginia. I was hanging out with a dude named Chaco Ninja. He's a fellow sandal warrior, so shout out Chaco Ninja. And he was saying he was going to pick one up, and I said I'm going to get rid of mine because it's getting warmer now and I don't need it anymore. So I gave that one to him. So that's the other thing that I picked up. Again, I can't show it to you because I don't have it anymore, but had that for a few weeks, and I'm glad that I got it because it did make sleeping, especially in the Smokies, a lot more comfortable. Some of those shelters, when you're sleeping on like the second level of a shelter and you've got draft, there's air underneath you, there's not earth underneath you. It can be really cold, and I think would have been especially cold just on the Uberlight. So I think the Uberlight has like an R value of maybe just over 2, like maybe 2.4 if I remember correctly, and then the Switchback has an additional like 1.7. So combined, R value is around 4 at the time. I was still using my Enlightened Equipment 20-degree Revelation quilt. So between all of those things and then sleeping in my clothes, I was warm enough. I could sleep fine. So that was good. Um, the other piece of gear that I have added since starting in Franklin, North Carolina, I picked up a pair of Injinji wool sock liners. So the liners are thinner than the normal socks. I try not to hike in them because that's really not what they're made for. They're made to layer under other socks inside of boots, and I don't think they would hold up very well um, if I did decide to hike in them. So those are sleep socks right now. I don't know if I'm going to keep them around or not, but I've been pretty happy with them. They're super comfortable and they're a good temperature if it's just cold enough that you don't want to sleep sockless. So I think that's all the stuff that I've added since starting. The other thing I'll talk about really quick, and sorry, not all this stuff, but I'll get to the big stuff in a second. The other thing I'll talk about real quick is stuff that I've repaired since I've been out here. So I've sewn up a hole in my beanie. I've sewn up two holes in my Z-Packs Possum Down gloves. Um, I sewed up one pair of Injinji wool socks. The repair, so they kind of tore like right where in between the big toe and second toe. The repair only held for a couple of days, I think, just because that area was under so much stress, and the floss I think was actually stronger than the fabric itself, so the fabric just continued to rip. Ultimately, got rid of those. I didn't need 2 pairs of wool socks anymore based on the time that it was. So the first pair, hiking in them every day, lasted about 400 miles, 450 miles maybe. Um, so that's fine. It's gotten warm enough that I'm just hiking with just the sandals, no socks at this point, and I like that a lot better. And that means I don't have to have as many pairs of socks, and I don't have to worry about stuff busting through like wool socks tend to do. So it's all good. And the other thing that I've repaired, the Enlightened Equipment Copperfield wind pants. I've got about 8 patches, 8 tape patches on at this point, which sounds like a lot. It is a lot. However, the first gosh, I guess until about Irwin, Tennessee, I wasn't very diligent about using my sit pad when I would stop for breaks or sit down at camp. Um, I got a piece of advice from a guy named Sky when I was staying with him in Irwin. He was like, dude, pants that thin, you got to sit on a sit pad. So I am much, much more uh, conscious of that now. And since I've started doing that, I haven't had to patch the seat of the pants with anywhere near as high a frequency. I probably put 2 incremental patches. I probably put 6 on like in the first couple months. I say first couple months, I'm only 2 months in. First month, I should say. Probably put 6 on the seat, and now I've put 2 on the front since then, just from walking through briars, stupid stuff like that. So not necessarily the fault of the product. It's more so user error. Um, the other thing that I'll mention, so um, my one of my trekking poles broke. So the Gossamer Gear LT5 trekking pole, walking over Roan Mountain, which was pretty disappointing for me. I know they're super light. I know they're carbon fiber, but I wish that had arrested my fall instead of me falling and breaking the trekking pole and cutting myself up with carbon fiber, cutting myself on the ground. And I was kind of equally disappointed in how Gossamer Gear ultimately handled it. It wasn't super easy for me to get a replacement, and when I did get a replacement, it was like almost a month later, which is a long time to hike with one trekking pole and to pitch your tarp with a trekking pole and a stick. It was just kind of frustrating. But nothing but love for Gossamer Gear, so don't think that I'm talking trash about them. But I was that whole experience kind of failed to meet my expectations. That are probably unfairly high for cottage companies as a through hiker or a attempted through hiker, I should say, at this point. Um, I'm trying to think. I think that's it in terms of stuff that I've repaired or replaced or broken. So now the big stuff. So it's starting to get warm outside. I am in Roanoke, Virginia today. I don't remember if I said that at the outset of the video, but if not, I am taking a 0 day here in Roanoke, just sitting in a motel, cleaning stuff, repairing stuff, doing the normal town chores, laundry, and resupply and all that. Um, but it's getting warmer outside. So a lot of people have sent a lot of stuff home. I haven't sent that much home yet, but I didn't start with that much. So I did send home those sealskin socks that I talked about. And then I've made two kind of big changes to my overall gear setup. So I actually got a new backpack and I got a new quilt, that both of which I plan to carry for the rest of my trip. The quilt, I'll just show you. It's probably easiest if I just turn this. So this is the Western Mountaineering Nano Light 40-degree summer weight quilt. So this is a down quilt before I had an enlightened equipment revelation. There's a few things about this quilt that are different in terms of its configuration compared to the Revelation. Obviously, the temperature rating is different, so there's going to be less down, makes it a little bit lighter. It also has a sewn foot box. So the Revelation, you can uncinch the foot box and kind of stretch it out into a blanket. You can't do that with this one. The attachment system, the way that it attaches to an inflatable air pad is a little bit different as compared to the Revelation. And then finally, it's got something that I think is unique. I hadn't seen this before. It's got a draft collar, so you can kind of see these lumps here that come out. That's right where your head kind of pokes out, is between them, to block wind around your head. And so far, I mean, if you cinch that collar down, I found that to be really effective. So I think that's a neat feature. Again, that's the Western Mountaineering Nano Light. It's rated to, I think I said 40, but I think it's actually rated to 38 degrees. And Western Mountaineering is pretty well known for having conservative temperature ratings. So we've had some nights in the 30s, and I've slept in this and maybe had more clothes on than I would typically like to wear to sleep. But it's done the job just fine, and it's considerably lighter than my Revelation. So probably saved about 10 ounces in base weight right there, which is pretty cool. Um, yeah, so that's the new quilt. I sent the old quilt home. And the other piece of equipment that is big and new, that I want to tell you guys about, is this backpack. So let me turn it around here. So this is the Zimmer built Quick Step. So if you watched my first video, you'll know I started out with a Gossamer Gear Gorilla 40-liter backpack from like 2015, 2016. So a pretty old backpack. I had been through a lot with it, had a lot of sentimental value, but ultimately it was probably from the get-go more backpack than I needed for the stuff that I was planning on carrying, which I thought wouldn't bother me. But the longer I hiked with it, the more I started, you know, I was cutting stuff off of it. I would cut like the trekking pole holders and the ice axe loop and the haul loop and the side compression straps and some of the miscellaneous attachment points I didn't necessarily use. I just started cutting that stuff off to try and save some weight from the backpack. And I think the tipping point for me was when I was going to hang the backpack in a shelter just to keep it away from mice and whatnot. Um, and I realized I'd cut off the haul loop, so I had to use some of my guy line to rig it up to hang it from the rafters of the shelter. And it was kind of a realization for me that I was, you know, damaging the feature set of my favorite backpack I've ever had, to try and make it lightweight enough to compete weight wise with backpacks that don't have frames and are probably more appropriate for the volume of stuff that I'm trying to carry. So I decided to send that backpack home. I sent it to my buddy Brian, so he's going to be putting that thing through the ringer and showing it the love that it deserves. So I'm sad to see it go, but I am incredibly excited about this Zimmer built Quick Step backpack. So I've been hiking with this thing for a little over a week now and am just so stoked. So let's talk through. I guess it's probably easiest to talk through, like, why is this backpack different from the Gossamer Gear backpack that I carried before? Why did I pick this one? And what's better about it for me as compared to the Gorilla? So first, let's talk about configuration. It's a smaller backpack. So the Gossamer Gear Gorilla was 40 liters. The Zimmerbuilt Quick Step, including these outside mesh pockets, I think is 36 liters. Um, I don't know exactly how Gossamer Gear measured that 40-liter measurement. This backpack, when packing it, when wearing it, feels considerably smaller than the Gorilla. And I don't know exactly why that is, if it's the way that the volume is shaped or if it has to do with the way they measured, 40 liters versus 36. But in any case, not a dissimilar overall layout, right? You've got one kind of big pocket, and this isn't packed right now with all of my camping stuff. This actually just has like half of my resupply from earlier today, but I wanted to just go ahead and shoot a video. So this isn't what it looks like when it's fully packed, but whatever. So it's kind of got a main compartment. It's got three outside mesh pockets, and I opted to get a hip belt. So it's got two hip belt pouches. Only one of them is attached right now. The other one's sitting over here on the floor. When I go to town, I like to take that one off and use some guy line to fasten it like a fanny pack. So I don't have a lot of pockets, but when I want to go shopping or whatever, and don't want to take the backpack, go do laundry. I just want somewhere to put my stuff, and I don't have pants pockets on any of my pants. Um, so that's similar to the Gossamer gear, right? Is I had the hip belt pockets. I also got water bottle holders for the shoulder straps, which was an add-on to this backpack. I like these a lot. I was using the Gossamer gear bottle rockets on my Gorilla, and those work really well. I could never figure out how to operate them with one hand, and that grew to be annoying, as silly as that sounds. Over the course of 600 miles or however long I had that backpack, I started to get annoyed by the fact that I couldn't operate it with one hand, especially when holding trekking poles. These I can do with one hand, which is great. So I've loved that. So that's the ways that the configuration is similar between the Gossamer gear and this Zimmer built backpack. So what's different from a layout perspective? So this top is a roll top closure. So you snap those together, you roll down the top, and you cinch it down on the sides. It's actually got some line that runs down into the side pockets that you fasten it with. Um, the Gorilla had a fold over top with a lid pocket, so I don't have a compartment up here anymore that I previously had. Um, so I had to redistribute that stuff. So that was like my pillow, my head net, my glasses case. Those all sit in one of the side pockets now. That's not a big deal. There's plenty of room for it. But that is one difference. Another big difference is with this backpack, and this isn't a standard feature, but it's something that you can add on to it. This has a bottom pocket. So there's this stretchy material. I don't know if calling that mesh is appropriate because I don't think it's mesh. Like you can't see through it, but whatever it is, I've got this big pocket that runs the entire length of the bottom of the backpack and can stretch out to a pretty good size. That's super handy because I can reach it when I'm hiking. So this backpack usually rides pretty high on my back. I can't yet reach into the side pockets while I'm hiking, and I kind of can, like these first little compartments where it's a lot lower. I'm trying to work on my flexibility so I can really like get more um, bang for my buck in terms of reaching these. Um, but the bottom pocket is great because you can very easily reach it. You can keep snacks down there. You can keep trash down there, like whatever. I haven't quite decided exactly what all is going to go down there, but I like the idea of putting like a day's worth of food in there and then not having to stop during the day, or not necessarily not having to stop, but not having to open my backpack every time I wanted more food. So that's super cool. The other big difference between this backpack, actually, there's a couple. Um, so one I mentioned earlier, this is frameless, so there's no like metal stays in here. Um, you can't carry as much stuff comfortably with a frameless backpack, which is fine because the weight that I was carrying didn't really require a frame, but it is a difference between the Gossamer gear and the Zimmerbilt backpack that I'm carrying now. Um, I have noticed I have to be a lot more intentional about how I pack the backpack in terms of trying to keep kind of a flat surface up against my back. I keep my foam sit pad in this shot cord that's on the back of the backpack there. So that helps add, kind of some shape, some cushion, but it certainly doesn't replace a frame. So like I wouldn't want to go out with 30 pounds of stuff in this backpack. It would get really uncomfortable really fast. The other big thing here is this backpack is made of dynamic composite fabric. So it's a different material. My Gorilla is made of Robic nylon. I think it was like 70D and 100D Robic nylon, or what the Gossamer gear packs are mostly made out of. This is a hybrid DCF. So it's lighter, it's thinner, um, and it doesn't absorb water. And the third of those is really important to me because as it's getting warmer outside, anytime it would start to sprinkle with my Gorilla, I would have to put on my poncho immediately because if that backpack got wet, it wasn't necessarily a concern about my stuff getting wet. All my stuff was waterproofed in other ways. But the backpack itself would get super heavy. So this doesn't have that same problem because it can't absorb water, which is kind of nice. Um, so those are the main differences, I would say. Um, the other thing that I'll just kind of breeze through quickly. So you could go buy this backpack today from Zimmerbilt. Chris can put them together really quick. I think he built this backpack once we had lined up exactly what the feature set was going to be. He built this backpack in like 8 days, and not even built it in 8 days. Like it arrived at in Glory's mailbox for her to send to me in like 8 days turnaround time, which is insane. But there's a few things about this backpack that are not necessarily the standard features. So I'll talk about those really quick. And I think that'll be it. That's kind of the gear update, but I was just super stoked on this quilt and this backpack. Weight wise, I'll go ahead and mention this backpack cuts like a pound off my base weight, I think. I don't know exactly because there are these non-standard options add some weight. So who knows exactly how much it weighs? I'll weigh it on a scale someday and we can find out then. So the things on this backpack that are non-standard, it has a haul loop that's an add-on. Um, the shoulder straps are padded, which is not a standard feature. I mentioned the water bottle holders on the shoulder straps. I've got a sternum strap that goes across the shoulder straps. That's not standard. The hip belt itself is not standard. Obviously, then the hip belt pouches are add-ons. You can select, so after you roll this top down, you can select to either have a strap or this shot cord V shape if you want to strap stuff on top of your backpack. I went with the shot cord. I haven't used it yet, but excuse me. But I'm excited to and just strap some silly stuff on top. Don't really need it right now with the load that I'm carrying, but I think it'd be fun to, strap a baguette or something on top of my backpack. But let's see what else. The shot cord to hold the sit pad on the back of the backpack is not standard. And I think that's it. So you can go buy this backpack today, and if you have a really light base weight, or if you want a backpack that's specifically kind of for overnights or weekend trips, um, would highly recommend it so far. Like I said, I've really enjoyed using it. If you don't have a super light base weight, and that's not to say like, oh yeah, I've got this really light base weight. I'm just trying to be realistic with the expectations that somebody should have about this backpack. Um, if you're carrying a lot of stuff, this is not the best backpack to do it. Chris makes other backpacks besides the Quick Step. There's one that's called the Big Step that actually has more carrying capacity. I don't know if he makes any backpacks that have frames, but he makes a lot of different stuff. Um, like I said, I've been super happy with this one. So, Chris, if you ever end up watching this video, thank you so much for the quick turnaround and whatnot. So it's a super cool backpack. I've really enjoyed carrying it. I'm like I said, it's with mixed emotions that I'm super stoked about this backpack because I really liked my Gossamer gear. I hope that it doesn't die in Brian's care and I'm able to get it back at some point and put some more miles on it. But it's kind of cool because when I switched to that backpack, the backpack I had before, kind of became the like, if I'm going on a weekend trip and I want to carry a bunch of nonsense with me, just if I'm going with buddies or something, not necessarily like a fast and light trip, that became the backpack for doing that. And then as my setup has gotten smaller and it's gotten lighter, I've gotten this new backpack. Now that Gorilla kind of takes the place of, hey, I can fit all my stuff and then I have a bunch of room left over so I can fit, just stupid stuff. Um, so yeah, that's the update. I'm looking forward to hiking some more tomorrow. We're getting close to entering Shenandoah National Park, which I'm really excited about. My parents are going to come visit. I've got a couple of other kind of visits and hiking guests planned for the next few weeks. So that'll be cool. So far, no Virginia blues, so I'm stoked on that. Thanks as always for watching. Thanks for the support. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, I love gear, so I'd love to talk about it. Just let me know. You can comment on this video. You can comment on the blog. You can drop me a line. I'm Billy at BillyGoesHiking.com. Thanks again.